Toma here with another video about fractions. So we're learning a ton of new things about fractions this week, and we want to be able to have time to practice all of this new information that we're hearing about in these videos. So this video, we're going to be able to practice how we are writing fractions in number form that we learned about in my last video. So just a quick recap. When we write fractions in number form, we have our top number and we have our bottom number. Our top number is called our numerator, which could be seen right over here. Our denominator is our bottom number, and I will circle that in red. Our top number, our numerator, tells us how many parts are shaded. And our denominator, our bottom number, tells us how many parts there are in total. So, looking at this circle over here, it's divided into 3 equal parts. Now, my top number tells me how many parts are shaded. So I can see only one part is shaded in purple. So I would write my 1, then I have my line, and my denominator, my bottom number, tells me how many parts there are in total, and that is 3. So I would write 3. And that's how I would write in number form to describe the parts that are shaded in this circle. So I would read this as 1/3 is shaded in purple, or 1 out of 3 parts is shaded in purple. So we're going to be practicing this today. So over here, we are given the number form, and we have to color what the number is telling us to. So our first one says 1/2, or 1/2. So my circle is already divided into 2 parts. And remember, that's our bottom number, is our total parts. So in this circle, we only have 2 parts. That's our total. And that would be our bottom number, which is written for us. Now our top number tells us how many parts we have to shade. And that's 1. So I'm going to shade in just 1 part of the circle. So that's how I would read this. 1 out of 2 is shaded in yellow, or 1/2 is shaded in yellow. So remember, our top number, our numerator, tells us how many parts we have to shade, and in this case it told us just to shade 1, and our bottom number, our denominator, tells us how many parts are there, and in this circle there was only 2. So let's move on to the next one. Over here we have a circle that's divided up into 3 parts, thirds. So I'm just going to label my 3 parts. Now again, I'm going to have to read my fraction in number form to be able to know how much to shade. So my numerator, that's in green, tells me how many I need to shade, how many parts I need to shade, and that says 1. So I'm only going to shade in 1 part. And my bottom number, my denominator, which is a 3, tells me that there's 3 total parts. And if we can count them in my circle here, I have 1, 2, 3. So that's correct. Now moving on to my next one, my circle over here, just going to number how many parts it has, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which you could see there's 4 at the bottom here, our denominator, which tells us the total number of parts. My top number here, my 1, tells me how many parts I need to shade. And there's only 1. So again, I'm only going to shade in 1 part. So I would read that as 1 out of 4 is shaded in yellow, or 1/4 is shaded in yellow. I'm sorry I skipped over that for this one. If I was going to read this, I would say 1 out of 3 is shaded in yellow, or 1/3 is shaded in yellow. Moving on to this over here. So we have 2 parts, 1, 2, and my denominator is also a 2. So that means there's only 2 total parts. My top number, my numerator, tells me how many parts I need to shade in. There's only 1. So I'm only going to shade in 1 part. So to read this, I would say 1 out of 2 is shaded in yellow, or 1/2 is shaded in yellow. Going on to my next one, I have 3 equal parts over here. And 3 is my total number, which could be seen here in my denominator, my bottom number. The denominator is the bottom number, and that tells us the total parts that the shape is divided into. And as you could see, this shape is divided into 3 total parts. My top number, my numerator, tells me how many parts I need to shade, and it's 1, so I'm only shading in 1 part yellow. So I would read this as 1 out of 3 is shaded in yellow, or 1/3 is shaded in yellow. And my last one here, I'm going to label how many parts it's divided into. That's 4 equal parts, which could be seen in my denominator or my bottom number here. My top number, my numerator, tells me how many parts I need to shade in, and that's only 1. So I'm only going to shade in 1 part, and I would read that as 1 out of 4 parts is shaded in yellow, or 1/4 is shaded in yellow. So hopefully this was good practice. We'll be doing more, but this was just an introduction of how we are practicing how to read fractions with numbers. So again, remember that our top number, our numerator, tells us how many parts we have to shade in, and our bottom number, our denominator, tells us the total parts there are. So once we know this, we'll be able to get better in learning about fractions and practicing more with fractions.